Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for March 20th, 2026. I'm Benji Fisher, moderating, and also here are Ralph Kohler sharing their screen, and Gareth, Pallavi Singh, Simo Helston, and Thomas Howell. Uh, Go ahead, Ralph.
Thanks, Benji. We are looking again at the issue from last week. It's issue number 290656. Is it 8? Yeah, 8. Provide users with the option to select an appropriate moderation state when reverting to a previous revision. I'll quickly share the status quo in the main branch. Few of you, Simo, Thomas, and Pallavi, were there last week's, but I do a quick summary for Benji and Gareth,
And for the
and
recording.
then and for the recording also. Yep, correct. And then also I have to note I probably would not limit the discussion today to that confirmation page this issue is about, but also to basically the content moderation in general, because why? Because we had a few wrong assumptions last week, and I did a bit more exploration during the week, went into that rabbit hole, and yeah, understand things now a little bit better. And I guess we could probably also discuss potential follow-up issues for this one, to make the experience a bit more comprehensive. Let's put it that way. Okay. And also has to be noted the issue, the merge request got rebased, and now we are also able to view everything in Chin, which wasn't available before the rebase, and that also surfaced another problem. So what we are talking about is basically the following. We have here the content list page. We create an article, and it has to be noted, the only thing I did was basically on the default editorial workflow. I simply added the article content type to this workflow applies to this workflow applies to section. And so if in the main branch we're currently in, if we do add a content, add an article, new blog post version 1, as you can see, it's in draft. In Chin, the state is moved to the advanced sidebar. In Claro, it was a checkbox down there. As we can see, we set it to draft, new blog post. Let's did a single thing in and save. Then we edit it again, do a version 2, set it to published, make a bit more noise, save it. And now we go in there, go to revisions, as you can see here. And if you revert, then in the main branch currently you get, are you sure you want to revert to the revision from Friday, 20 March 2062? We revert to, and oh, yeah, crap. And if we go in there, as you can see, it's still version 2. Yeah, and problem is basically last week we stayed basically in the overview list view, and in mo content moderation you also have the moderated content. In here you basically get to the reverted one. As you can see here, it's new blog post version 1. But if you go to edit, then you see it's still published and it's version 2. It might be also a bug in the merge request as well. I just commented on that issue, but let's get over 1 second. The sites, the core, Drupal, git branch, git checkout, he left here, and let's do the same.
So what you've showed us so far is just the default
Yeah,
on the main branch.
exactly.
And now you're going to show us what happens with the merge request
Yeah. It's also a
information.
slightly different behavior if you have content moderation uninstalled. Then the revert basically changes um, to the first revision and then it got published as well. Another blog post version 1, also draft, save, edit, version 2, make longer, 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 publish, save. And now if you go into revisions and revert, now you get the following. Are you sure you want to revert to the revision from Friday, 20 March 2016 at quarter past 3 p.m. And as you can see here, we now have the revision moderation state as draft and revert and set to. It has to be noted last week, our assumption was that this one here refers to basically what is the state of the current revision, but it's basically the information, what is the state of the node you're going to revert to. And then you have the option to change that with that setting. Because last week our suggestion was, I guess, current revision moderation state and new revision moderation state or something like that. But it's basically that one here refers completely to the state it is going to the node it's or to the revision it's going to be reverted to. So that's completely different. And
You
another
you could
problem,
you could test this by doing a version 3 that's in draft as well, and then revert to the published just to confirm, because I think I'm experiencing this, and a lot of our users have a lot of confusion over when they revert a revision.
yeah,
If you have the workflow that means all new revisions become draft. When they look at the page, they're looking at the last published version. They always look at the last published version, even if there's 3 or 4 draft revisions after that last published version.
When
yeah,
you view the page.
Yeah,
that's the problem. Yeah, once I got to that, but before that, another a more serious problem even. In Claro, it was sort of okayish, but if you see here, for example, if you are on a mobile device or if you have narrowed down your browser, then you only see, are you sure you want to revert to the revision? You
cool.
have no way, you have no basically clue in the breadcrumb in which node you're referring to. You have no clue what revision, you have nothing. So it basically fails everything, page title and so forth, um, through that truncation. And that's a serious problem from my perspective. The entire context is missing that way. Um, anyway, but point is now I'm reverting to draft. As you can see here, we are now on the revisions page, and that is what Gareth told is basically now I'm on the revisions page. I see, okay, I've reverted to basically that new one. And I think now, okay, now I set it as current revision. I get again to the confirmation page. I get revert. I have the same. While over here, and I'm the admin, so strictly speaking, I should be able. And over here, as you can see, that's the one thing we haven't looked at last week is basically, and it's the point Thomas raised as a suggestion or a question last week, if it would be good to be able to, after a node was published, being able to basically, yeah, revert to, for example, a draft or draft that current published state, that it remains online while working in parallel. And as you can see here, it's version 2, another block. While if you go over to the moderated content, you have, yeah, version 1. And there we get to the bug. If you edit it, you get into it, you have still version 2 and the published one. So that I've already reported as a problem, but are any questions so far? Because otherwise I would briefly extend the points I wanted to touch, or should we briefly finish basically that? 1 second, I go over here. Yeah, that's another problem. Edit and context is horrible in here. Or should we first discuss that page briefly and then continue, or how would you prefer? Or are there any questions to this point?
This might be for later that we can look at, but I have been meaning to look at whether or not if you create a third and a fourth revision and then publish like the third revision, if you revert to the third revision, does everything kind of work properly because the revision you're reverting to is published? Is this only because the future revisions are in draft that you see them in the front page? You understand? So
Not quite.
we have version 2 there, but the current revision is actually version 1 that we've reverted to.
Yeah.
If we create a version 3 and then maybe revert to version 2.
You mean create a version 2? Now let's go in here, edit it.
Yeah.
Another round of edits leading into version 3. Should that be draft or
Yeah,
publish?
I think it doesn't matter. I think that what I'm talking about is this next stage when we
Say
revert.
now. So I'm saving now.
Yeah, please.
Okay. And
And then
now go into edit revisions.
yeah, if we
The,
revert to a published revision, so
uh,
uh,
no,
maybe the
no, the only
20th of
part
May.
that the current revision is the published one. All the others are basically
They were
previous.
draft. So if you can you revert to the May the 20th? I think that's version 2, isn't it?
Okay,
There's a revision moderated state is now published
so
and set and
moderated
reverted. Yeah.
or revert. And now let's go into, yeah, it's back to
So
version
it's
2.
yeah, so this works if you revert to a published state. It's when
That's
you revert to a draft state that everything kind of falls apart.
okay. Let's revert back to the version 3. Yeah, that works. Uh, it's now back to version 3.
So the issue is reverting to a draft revision.
Or let's put it better, to revert it to a version that is not published.
Yeah.
Because there could other states than draft as well.
Right?
Yeah.
Could be an archived state, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. We're
anything
just
else, you can create bespoke states.
Yeah, we're implementing a trash workflow in this because the trash module has problems with this as well. If you trash a version and then untrash it and you have automated revisions in place, the new version that is untrashed, but the revision remains trashed and then causes all sorts of problems because the node system doesn't like having a revision that's trashed. But there might be custom code involved in that. I haven't quite narrowed down what our actual issue with that is, but certainly you're right. The revision states can be custom.
S- So let me ask a few background questions because
Yeah.
I don't deal with revisions very much. Um, so first of all, Drupal, I think, only supports a linear sequence of revisions. Is that right?
Mhm.
It looks like, yeah.
So you can't take an older revision and edit it and have sort of a branch, two
You
different
can't you
branches.
can't you can't edit a revision at all. You have to do what Ralph has done there, make a copy of the previous revision and make that current.
Yeah. Move it back to, in air quotes, head, even though it's misleading.
Okay, so you can make a copy of an older revision and make it the newest
Current.
revision. Is the
Yeah.
newest revision also called the current revision?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, the current revision is the one that is basically shown in here in that overview list. That is the one that is published and accessible.
Okay, so the newest published revision is the current revision.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I don't know that it is. I think
Oh,
you can have a current revision that's unpublished, but that's what the bug we're experiencing is. It appears in the overview. The
Mm,
overview shows the current published. The moderated content shows the latest revision, regardless of its state. But I
y-
think if you have a current revision, you cannot edit it if it's unpublished. It's difficult to
uh,
edit it
yes and no. Yes and
because yeah,
no.
I think you'll always end up editing the last published version and creating a new revision of that.
you edit the last published revision?
Yeah, because if you see here, this is the version that you can edit this, and this will create a new revision. So if even if you change this to version 4, change the state to draft. Say you want to try and I'm not going to finish this today. Let's
And before you
work on this.
publish, whoa, oh well, too late.
Oh, sorry.
So the overview is still showing version 3, but if you look at the moderated content is version 4. Ah, you can edit it here though. However, if you edit that, does that show you version 4 to edit or
Pardon?
sorry,
Yeah,
in the
go
moderated
back to
content?
moderated content.
In here.
That's showing version 4. If you edit that, are you editing version 4 or do you edit version 3? No, you go back to the last published version and you create a revision
Oh,
of the last version. This
that
is
is.
causing no end of problems because we have users who assume, oh, I'm creating a revision. I want to keep what I have published. I'm going to work on a new version of this and I'll publish it at some point in the future. And they're always losing their work because every time they re-edit it, they're creating a new version of version 3 ultimately.
But that isn't that is the same bug like I showed
Yeah,
basically with the other one because in here each that one the list view shows the correct attribute the title with version 4, but if I go into edit it switches to
yeah,
basically the published version again.
yeah,
But I just wanted to add it's not always the published version that is shown. There's the constraint in case there was no published version yet, then the draft is shown in the overview as well. As you can see,
yeah,
if I do here a first blog post again, V1 as draft, save, and I go, oops, in here, first blog post again, in the overview, the draft is shown
yeah.
as unpublished. But
As
as
soon as
soon
that
as
gets published,
published, then content moderation kicks in full effect. Yeah. So, any more questions?
no,
I have a short
Ben?
one. I'm sorry. Um, am I understanding it correctly that um, Moderation state is introducing um, essentially descriptive labels for revisions, but it's not actually allowing multiple true states so that you could have 0 or 1 revisions published in parallel to 0 or more currently edited revisions. So revisions in editing. Instead, it's still following the Drupal linear approach, but putting labels on them that we then are operating against those labels.
Um, there, there is two parallel states kind of going on, and quite often, if you go back to that content view, what I have done to try and make it clearer is I edit this view. So we've got status, but we've also got published state beside it, because you can have published, and in the workflow state, it could actually be draft, or it could be published, or it could be archived. And you can have an unpublished state here, which is technically published in the Drupal sense, but unpublished in the workflow sense. And it is quite confusing if you only have vision of one of the two states. So that the workflow state isn't shown on the content view.
Okay.
Yep. And as you can
Um,
see here, you could also have more states than the default draft published and archived.
yeah, so if you edit the draft, you'll see that it does show there when content reaches this state, it should be published, and you can have that I think that published and unpublished checkbox right under the label. That refers to the Drupal status of the
So,
node.
so is it possible for you to be editing something in draft while my version of the node is published?
Yeah,
It,
that's the key, what we were talking about, what you have
yeah,
here. In the overview list page, you have basically, as soon as something is published, it's basically in air quotes fixed, while on a parallel track within the moderated content state tab list, or however you want to call it,
yeah,
you have basically the draft that is editing on that published state for a version 3 of version 2.
yeah. You can see the difference there. You've got status and you've got published and unpublished, but in the moderated content, you have moderated state, and that's
Yeah.
draft. You might have published there on archive there as well,
Yeah,
or any other custom ones.
I don't think this is an option, but I really wish we could have a Figma diagram that would allow
Mm.
us to trace what is happening. Because I feel like this is a big spaghetti mess for me.
Yeah, I think it is, and I think a lot of our users here think if you create a revision of a published article, you can then work on that until you're ready and then save it. But I think what happens is it always goes back to the last published and
Mhm.
creates a new version. So each subsequent revision is a brand new version of the originally saved published node.
Um, yes and no. 1 second. We are, let's say, another blog post version 3. And let's say, uh, oh no, forget it. Ah, my brain is doing twists. Sorry.
I think that's why I mentioned Figma. Like I'm really
Yeah,
struggling to hold everything that's happening simultaneously, and so I'm getting confused. So I apologize.
it's very complex, and it's taken me a long time to like. This has been a problem every time I introduce workflows. It's always something that you have to try and impart into your users. That yeah, it's not quite as intuitive as it should be.
So that seems to me like a very serious problem that you can have an unpublished revision that's newer than the default revision, and you're not allowed to edit that newest revision until you publish it. That just seems wrong.
But
Um,
I think the way Drupal has built it is you create your new version, you keep typing till you're finished, then you publish that. Um, I s- we have had workflows where you can go from revision to in review, and then from review into published, and I think that works okay, because um, but when you introduce revisions, it becomes really tricky.
Um,
well, if you're going to have a review state, you have to consider the possibility that the reviewer says, no, make these changes. And
Yeah.
then the editor says, but I can't. And that just seems totally unacceptable. If that's the way it works, that seems like a very serious problem to me.
but
And as far as I can tell, that is the way it works. And you have much more experience than I do. So I guess that is the way it works. So the question is, should we discuss that or should we discuss the issue at hand, which is this enhanced confirmation form? Go ahead, Ralph.
um, I, personally, I would like to finish the overview because there are a few
Yeah.
more problems to illustrate, and then it provides a bigger picture.
And
And
are these problems with the current issue or are these
yeah,
problems that are already exist?
um, it's with content moderation in general and with the problems, yeah, like Gareth confirmed here as well, and just with it, basically how you navigate and get to that confirmation page, as well as how to have the situational awareness within content moderation, in which in which revision you are in, and so forth, and how you manage, and for example, also that the problem how we got to basically to the problem we only worked in here in the overview and then bumped into walls as well. So it's just 5 minutes and then we can decide.
Okay, go ahead.
Um, one problem is basically at the moment, if you're here on the overview page and go into, you have currently have to go into edit and then you have to go over here into the revisions. And problem is basically one step further in before revisions is missing basically here in the options. That way you can way quicker get in here um, to get to the revisions. Another problem that have basically all the entity types as well as the user type is all the local tasks got crammed into that more actions button up here. Before that, in the admin view, you had basically the local task. That way, it provides a way better overview and way better contextuality. And another problem on that revisions page itself, um, the problem I've shown before, for example, with that edit. If you are not aware, basically, that you're basically on the in parallel to the published track, um, you have the problem that if you set to current and to draft, you don't set it to current. Basically, the button isn't doing what it is implying. Setting that copy to the revision, that is a problem. And again, if you have a list of not only four, but let's say 20, base everything just on the date and time, basically the timestamp and the name. I have no idea what is published, what is not published, in what state one revision is in. I have no context at all. The only anchor is basically the current revision, and that's it. And
I
Um,
can't I can't remember if there's a patch for this somewhere. There might be an issue for this, but I have in the past, and I can't remember, it was a while back I did it. I have edited this view in such a way that it gives you more granularity and more information about which revision you're reverting to. So I think it gives you like information about the headers. And certainly if you install the diff module, you can see a diff between your versions, which makes it a lot
yeah,
easier. But there's a lot of work to do to fix this, because that is horrible, that copy of revision of 20s. Because like those are two revisions that are identical. You don't know what the difference are between the top two
yeah,
revisions.
yep. And also the point with the missing local task is basically that way. For me, it always looks like, hey, I'm stuck here on the revisions page. How I'm getting back basically to the edit page. So yeah, you have to go there and then you're there. But with those dots that are basically invisible, that's another issue I have on the short list. Uh, I it's in the upper right corner of your screen on a 30. I'm on a 36-inch screen as my main monitor, and if you have a wide expanded screen, you always forget it's up there, and it's a long way to get there, and you have a homogeneous list of tasks. It's plain horrible, to be honest. And the one last thing, then I give over to Thomas. Apologies. I oh no, I guess that's it more or less. But yeah, oh no, the one thing, yeah, that the last thing I wanted to to say is basically on it's also having overview or moderated content as separate lists. For A, you don't know if you have new entities that need your attention, and also the problem if you are in, for example, a version 1, forget now that we are in version 2 here due to the bug, but there is no clue or no diff or no connection between what is basically the published version that is currently viewed, so that you are able to see in parallel what has changed, what is the status quo that is published. There is no connection. They're basically isolated from each other. So yeah, and go over to Thomas. Apologies.
Oh, no apologies whatsoever. You wanted to go through everything. Um, I'm seeing and hearing that there's a long list of challenges with moderation. And if you go to the revision page, I had a minor quibble, and I'm going to use it
Version,
to,
1 second.
thank you. So I find that entire revision block to be very wordy, like copy of the revision rather than revision copy. They have the date twice, and it's very long form. Uh, so it ends up being a lot of stuff. So if you have many revisions that you're reading through, I can't imagine using a screen reader or something like that to have to try and find the right revision that you want to scroll to on a page. Because in my experience in the past, like getting 20, 30 or more revisions is not uncommon. I don't know if moderation is supposed to be changing how frequently we generate revisions. But every time we save, my understanding was saving a revision means that the next time you edit it, it's creating a new revision. Or am I misunderstanding that?
That's correct.
What,
Okay.
Thomas.
I don't know about content moderation, but without content moderation, that's a choice that the site builder makes, either to make new revision mandatory or optional.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's the same in workflow. You don't have to have revisions. You can have just the workflow working as it is, but it is this create new revision tag that's bottom
But if
there.
you have revisions, like every change generates a new copy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's all or nothing. Okay.
And you can untick that, and you can still have revisions, but it then becomes the editor's choice as to whether or not each revision, they have to then, when they're doing
Yeah.
when
Okay.
they go into the content, they can tick a box and say create a new revision.
Yeah, but in this case, as soon as a content type has the first revision, then it's impossible to untick, isn't it? As you can see here, it's disabled.
Uh, and I guess the second thing that's I guess a little more mundane. I'm lost as to what question we're trying to answer for today. Like, what is the thing that we want to achieve by the end of the hour?
Mhm.
Or is it just general agreement that there's this laundry list of issues and we want to create some meta issue that tracks this laundry list?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And I think, Ralph, a lot of the things you're pointing out are unrelated to the issue we started with. They're existing problems with revisions and content moderation.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
uh,
just for context.
Yeah.
and before going too deeply into any of them, I'd like to spend the time to see whether there are existing issues that address those points, and sort of write down uh, the list of problems and either talk about one of those or talk about the issue we started with.
Um,
But I guess my preference for right now would be to discuss the issue we started with.
That sounds good to me.
yep. Yeah, just finish basically that issue.
So my first impression, looking at the screen we're looking at now, and this is what changes in the issue we started with, right?
Yeah,
So my first impression is that we are taking a confirmation form, which is this dead simple thing with a message and two submit buttons, and we're adding stuff to it. So I'm not sure that that's a pattern we want to use at all. Now, the other option, or the way it currently works, is that when you revert, I think you're then directed, or you stay on the um, the list of revisions page. And when you do that, I guess you have the option to set as a current revision, but that actually does the same thing as reverting.
yep.
Um, and guess I guess there's currently no way to take the latest revision and publish it, or is that done from the content moderation page?
That's done from the content moderation page. That is
I
the point where we ran into a wall last week because we remained on the overview list page and not went on the moderation page.
I see.
But that is basically sending a false message to the user because in here you have basically the CTA set as current revision. And if you click that, you just get to the revert confirmation page again and add another entity of that or another copy. And that is wrong.
If you set the new one, so set current revision and then set it to published.
That works.
Oh, okay. So
So it's having the choice is pointless because the only way you can make this work is to set it to published. You can't actually create a draft because then the draft
Yeah,
goes into limbo.
exactly. Because if we're in here, set as current, that doesn't make any sense. In here, it should be implicit published. So there shouldn't be a confirmation page at all. It should be simply
Right. So again, you're talking about something that's not changed by this pull request. Can you just cancel this?
um, no, that pull request basically applies here because it introduces that one here. Without the merge request, that one doesn't exist, and therefore it applies to the merge request from my perspective. And Seymour raised his hand.
Yeah, go ahead, Simo.
So one of the kind of the obvious things I see here is that when you click set as current revision, it opens a form confirmation for reverting to a revision. So this is definitely not correct. The
Yeah.
person didn't click on revert. And also on the label revert and set to and the button revert. So this is definitely in the scope that this form shouldn't be used here. Or if they want to use the form, it should be like something that the text should apply to both revert and set as current revision. And it's kind of hard to imagine how that text would look like. So that it would communicate that it's either revert or the setting to current revision.
Right.
And
And if you just hover over that button that says set as current revision, which is actually a link styled as a button, and you look at the URL it's going to, it's revisions 26 revert, which, except for the revision number, that's the same as if you hover over one of the revert links. And that's part of the point that Simo was making, that set as current revision is actually doing the same thing as the revert link.
Yep.
And that seems like a bug. I think the one thing you can do is if you click on the first link in the revision column,
In here,
yes, that gives you an option to change the moderation state. Doesn't give you the chance to edit the revision, but it does give you the chance to change the moderation state.
yeah. But it basically is doing the same. If you change from draft to published, it's the same as set as current revision. It
To
is also
published, yeah.
set it to publish. So
Right. So Simo, I cut you off. Did you have more to say?
yeah, and when we started, it was obvious that the labels on the form are not sufficient because we last week didn't understand what they mean. That that
The labels
revision,
on this form?
yeah. So because we
Okay.
misunderstood that first label, and then wanted to make it clearer, but we didn't understand what it was. So our new label was obviously incorrect. So that's something that needs to be done.
Ralph, go ahead.
in regard of the labeling, I wonder if basically the revision moderation state um, refers to basically the revision you're reverting to.
Yeah.
Why using that revision moderation state draft at all? It's just redundant information, and simply use the select element and use basically the current state of the revision you're reverting to as a default. And that way you don't need it twice. It's simply and don't use it as revert, but rephrase it as the label to something like what revision should have that what state should that revision have you're reverting to. But it have basically it applies strictly speaking. 1 second, if you create a new blog, it applies to the in Claro, it's more clear, and because there you have the same pattern used on that confirmation form. There you have basically the revision moderation state, and the moderation state, and the state you want to change to in Chin. It's moved over here, and therefore it looks a bit different. But still, I think that one up here isn't
Yeah.
needed, and you could simply use the select and have a label and make it more clear.
Yeah, I agree with that. That just looking at this particular form, I agree that it would be an improvement to remove that first section. Other opinions on that?
I agree.
And a thumbs up from CMO.
Agreed.
Okay. Um, but I actually think that putting this extra drop-down list on this confirmation form is the wrong approach. And I would much rather um, add an option to the drop button on the revision list page to change the moderation state. So I guess, and I get a thumbs up from Thomas. So I guess maybe it would only apply to the most recent revision, that in addition to the existing options of either delete or set as current revision, if you look at the most recent revision, um, you would also have the option to change the moderation state. So I would rather do it from this page rather than the confirmation form. Just because I think confirmation forms are an established pattern and we shouldn't be adding drop lists to our confirmation forms. Go ahead, Thomas.
I would suggest that in support of what you just stated, um, making the confirmation form longer in any way, shape, or form also makes it more tedious to use. And so you're taking someone off to a separate page, separate form, and then you're coming back. And so not only is it bad from a changing a pattern perspective, it slows down anyone who's got a lot of articles they have to move through. If you've got a really complex, I'm thinking of like a publishing context where you've got significant content. That's a lot of extra stuff to have to move through. That would seem unnecessary.
So looking at it a different way, with this pull request, if I have some older revision that I want to revert and publish, I click on revert, I get the confirmation form, I choose something from a drop list, and I submit. So my proposal is maybe one extra click. I would choose from the I choose from this page, I would choose revert, I would confirm, and then once it's the current revision, I would choose something from the drop button to publish it. So it's actually not any more clicks.
But is that clearer? So you're saying I want to revert to this one,
Yes.
and I click revert.
Uh-huh.
That confirmation step wouldn't be there, and I would immediately have basically a new copy of that up here on top.
Right.
And
I think that set as current revision shouldn't be set as current revision. It should be publish this revision.
So publish in what sense? Is that changing the content moderation workflow, or is that setting the base field?
Essentially, it's if you click it, it's doing what it's doing at the moment because I think because that's a copy and it's not the current, that's technically a draft. So if you click the set as current revision right now, instead of having the confirmation page, can you click that, Ralph? Is that okay?
One
The,
sec.
what that button would actually do is it would do this, but it would set that to published, and then just do that. I don't know that set as current revision does anything other than
It sets to basically publish.
Yeah, that's what
yeah,
Simo and I were saying earlier, that
sorry, yeah.
what it currently does is it creates a new copy of the most current revision, which does not seem helpful
No.
No.
and certainly isn't well described by set as current revision. But you still haven't answered my question, Gareth. When you say published, do you want to set the core base field to published, or
Yeah,
do you want to change the moderation state?
I think it's the core base. I don't think moderation. I think this it would be interesting to see this without moderation at play at all, because I think it's the same case. I think you still have set as current revision. I think we still have the same issue regardless of that. And the reason that the latest revision is not set as current is because that's not currently published. So set as current revision doesn't really do anything until that revision is published. So you might as well just not have that button set to publish, and it will become a published article, and then it becomes the latest.
Okay, so we're getting near the end of the hour. What I suggest we do now is that a lot of these comments don't belong on the issue we started with, but we could use the issue for today's meeting as a place to take notes. And let's use that issue and write down the things we've noticed. So this odd behavior of set as current revision, um, the tweaks to the form, um, the fact that it seems you cannot edit the latest revision unless it's published. Um, and I'm probably forgetting one or two. Let's write those down on the issue for today's meeting. And then let's further explore, are these issues with the current issue, the merge request from the current issue? Are these existing issues? Are these only problems when content moderation is involved? Let's figure out where each of these should be fixed, and look for existing issues, and if necessary, file some new issues. Go ahead, Ralph.
The only thing I would probably not write on the issue for today is that set as current version. That should definitely go on the merge request from my perspective. I think Simo also agreed before.
Oh,
But
I
yeah.
see the same behavior with 11.x without
Oh,
applying the merge request.
okay. Then, okay, then yeah, let's then collect the problems on the issue for today's meeting. And yeah, I guess we probably need to revisit another time because yeah, also the question is that confirmation page needed at all? Because from your perspective, Benji, it isn't. While if it's still needed, then the microcopy needs definitely also an update, as you can see here, due to the problem of truncation, which is completely missing context.
Right. I actually think it would be an improvement if the revisions page listed the revision numbers. And then are you sure you want to revert to revision 3578 rather than the timestamp?
But it should also show basically the state and the publishing state as well. Those are also two very important questions aside,
Right.
details aside
When,
the
when
revision number.
content moderation is enabled, it should certainly add that information to this view.
Yeah, exactly. And without content moderation and enable the publishing state is still an important detail there
Okay.
from my perspective. So, oh, yeah. I'll write then a summary of the points from last week because they still apply and illustrate the problem with the microcopy. And then we collect from today the discussion and then we'll see how to proceed.
Okay. Thank you.
And we can also search for existing issues. Maybe some of those points we've touched today have already existing issues that might be even better.
Yep.
Then we could create a meta issue for all of those. But yeah, as Gareth said, the whole workflow is really confusing for users. And I've shown that during the last coffee table on Tuesday, and all the people there, all backend developers were also confused. So that definitely needs improvement.
Okay, well, we are a minute over, so thank you all for coming. Please do follow up if you're going to DrupalCon. Have a good time, learn something. And I will be back next week, I think, and hope you can make it again.
Thank you. Have a nice weekend,
Thank you.
everyone.
Take care.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Sharing.
Bye.
Then.
Bye bye.